You know, the funny thing about spiritual awakening is that it comes in phases, starts and seeming finishes. It's never just all at once until you hit a really big phase, and then there's just a cascade of all these experiences and understanding, and you seem to just know things that you didn't learn anywhere. But for the most part, and for the vast majority of people, it's in phases, it's bits and pieces. And there's some things that catch up with you. You know, meditation, I did a lot, I've really fallen off my practice. I did a lot of it back years ago and fairly recently as well. I think that kind of lays a good groundwork. But even if you don't meditate, it's not all about that. But meditation, various spiritual rituals, various reaching out, channeling, and connecting to gods and spirits. The spiritual path usually starts out with you're looking for some kind of hope. Is there hope? Is there a path that I can specifically find that is right for me, that doesn't feel like I'm subverting my own will and subverting my own power and subverting my own interpretation of this multiverse or universe? That's how it starts. And with that hope comes a lot of blind faith and, just trying things out. But as you develop your practices, as you start to actually make connections to these gods and spirits, as you start to be able to connect with the earth, and it's never like, oh, I'm connecting to the earth right now. It's a slow process, but before you know it, you're doing it. You don't even think to realize how amazing it is to connect to gods and spirits, but the earth itself. Connecting to the earth is so fundamental to, honestly, almost all spiritual paths, especially ones that uncover knowledge within ourselves, knowledge that is buried deep, seems to come from nowhere, and that's what also creeps up on you, is that you're making all these connections. You don't really realize it at the time, but slowly, and at some point, you're like, wow. Look back, you're like, wow, when did this all start clicking? When did all these connections start happening? When was I able to do all these things and to have such good results? When was I able to look properly within myself and look at nature and look at the gods and truly see something without either imagining it or without wishing it to be? So much so that you hypnotize yourself into thinking you're seeing something when you're not. So you're looking for lines in the shadows and wishing for an image to be there so it appears and you see an image. When did I get past that wishful thinking and actually begin to be able to look at things and see trees as they are, to see the dead as they are, to see spirits as they are, to see the earth as it is, and to see myself as a continuation of all these things and connected to these things? When did that happen? But, the looking part, it slowly becomes less remarkable, less fascinating, and less dumbfounding, and you start having less ego about it. You stop thinking of how special it is to be able to look, to understand, and to see what is there. But at some point, you start finding things within yourself. You start uncovering things that aren't necessarily other spirits or gods or the earth telling you anything. You start uncovering things that are quite odd, like somebody else has been within your being, within your spirit. And you find that somebody else has been seeking in the very material that makes up your body, the very material that makes up your spirit, the very material that makes up maybe even your soul. The soul is very deep. There's a lot of other bits before the soul. It's almost like somebody has been seeking here and has left knowledge around, and you're picking up that knowledge as you seek. And there's books, there's ambitions, there's hopes, there's dreams that must have been sought by somebody. That must have had been the result of other people seeking and perhaps finding, but not being there within anymore. You're the only one there. Or you're the only one that seems to be in high command, as it were. But it's very interesting once we find the remnants of all these things, of all these people, and we wonder, is it the spirit within our spirit, the life force this life force that was in somebody else? Was it the material of our body? Was it the soul? Are we touching the soul? And not being fully enlightened, you're not really sure, but you seem to know things. You seem to uncover things. You seem to find these pieces. And a little bit after that, you start wondering if you died at all, or if your life is not so much a continuation, but the same life, and you're just picking up where you left off. And you start asking, did we die? Or is this the same? Who knows? But these are the questions that you ask. And the funny thing about spiritual awakening